Welcome to OWLS IELTS. In this class, we'll talk about advanced verbs that you must use in your answer. These verbs can be used in bar graphs, line graphs, pie charts, or table questions. If you have not watched class 1, you will find the link above or in the description section. And if you want entire classes on how to write a perfect answer, then that will be uploaded in a different series named Journey from Band 5 to Band 8, so that it will be easier for you to trace the lessons. Now let's get started. So this is our bar graph, and this is about number of drunkards in Kathmandu. This is not a fact, actually. I just made it up, and in reality there are more. Jokes apart, so let's see how students explain this graph. Now it seems that the answer is okay, but it's not, because there are crucial mistakes in this paragraph. Now I want you to pause the video as per your requirements and read these mistakes. I have already talked about mistake number 2 in our first class. In this class, I'll talk about the first mistake, and that is using common verbs, lack of advanced verbs. First of all, as I frequently say that students do this and that, I don't mean every student from every nook and corner of the world. I always mean most of the students, and that may not comprise you. That means that may not consist you. Well, I gave you your first verb, comprise. It means consists. Now let's see how to apply this verb in the sentence. Let's observe this graph. In 1970, we can see that the number of drunkards in Kathmandu was about 140. Okay, it's about 140. But while you write the same thing, you need to write that the number of drunkards comprised roughly 140. Same verb applies to a line graph as well. Don't get confused with these graphs. Let's take another example. The number of drunkards comprised precisely 150 in 2000. You can apply this verb to the pie chart questions or table questions also. Okay, so here let's take a note that we wrote this sentence in the past tense. Why? Because past dates are given in the question. When dates are given, it is referring to something in the past. So this is something very simple, a simple rule that you need to understand. When dates are given, you need to use a past tense. However, there are also other cases where you may have to use a present or future tense. If you want a complete video on tenses, let me know. Another note is, here I didn't mention the place. Why? Because the place is already mentioned in the introduction part. So you don't have to repeat the name of the place again and again in your body paragraph. Now the second verb is constituted. This means comprised. So if you have used this verb comprised already, then you can use constituted next time. Let's take an example. The number of drunkards constituted precisely 150 in 2000. So instead of writing constituted, you can also write comprised, or you can use these two verbs interchangingly. But do not repeat the same verb again and again. I mean, do not repeat it immediately. We learned two verbs. Let's talk about another verb, stands at. The past form is stood at. The number of drunkards stood at just below 150 in 1970. Instead of writing comprised or constituted, you can write stood at. But take another note here, because this is very, very important. You can use stood at only while mentioning the initial phase or the initial date. Here, 1970 is the initial date. You cannot write the number of drunkards increased and stood at almost 200 in 1980. You cannot write this. You cannot use stood at while explaining the data of 1980. Why? Because 1980 is not the initial data. However, you can use comprised or constituted anywhere you want. So this is a small limitation of the verb stood at. Now let's go to the fourth verb. The fourth verb is accounts for. In the past tense, accounted for. This is a phrasal verb. This also means constituted or comprised. You can use this verb accounted for instead of comprised or constituted. For example, the number of drunkards increased gradually and accounted for almost 200 in 1980. So these are the four verbs, and there are also other verbs, but you will need those other verbs when you learn to write a sentence in different structures, and I will teach you that also, but in other classes. And yes, I need some feedbacks about the lessons. I also need to know what sort of lessons you want. So make sure you drop a comment below. Make sure you bail the channel. Thank you so much for watching. You are awesome.